On November 25th, 2013, Bacon School hosted Dr. Joe Sanfelippo from Fall Creek, Wisconsin, and Dr. Dave Gentile, our superintendent from the Millville Public Schools, to do a compare and contrast about education in Wisconsin and New Jersey. Students of Mr. Hudson's 5th grade class researched both Dr. Sanfelippo and Dr. Gentile. They went through their blogs, they went through their Twitter feeds, and asked them questions about what it's like to be a connected superintendent. The podcast that you're going to listen to is a result of that, where Mr. Hudson's class asked awesome questions to both Dr. Sanfelippo and Dr. Gentile.
Hi, and welcome to our interview between Dr. Gentile and Mr. Sanfelippo. We are proud to have two connected superintendents in our classroom. Please welcome Mr. Sanfelippo from Wisconsin and Dr. Gentile from Millville, New Jersey. Before we begin the interview, would both of you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, I think we did that. Then feel pretty good about where we're at. You're doing a great job moderating, my man.
Was there something in particular? I know that we just started recording, but we got a chance to get to know each other. As we talked about, we're both superintendents. We're kind of far apart, separated by many states, but we're connected through social media and the ability to go online and learn from each other and ask questions. I learned from Dr. Sanfelippo as much as maybe he does for me. We ask each other questions about being superintendents and how to make things better for your kids. And that's pretty much how we got to know each other. This is, I think, the second time our bodies actually are meeting with our brains, so to speak, because we meet online and we get to talk, and now we're actually getting to be in the same room together. And you're going to be our moderator and asking a bunch of great questions from your class, right?
Yes.
Okay, take over. Because if you don't, I'll just keep talking, because that's what superintendents do.
That's exactly right.
So I have a question for Dr. Gentile. Dr. Gentile, do you have the same doctor's degree as Dr. Cook?
That's an interesting question. I'll have to defer to you. I have an educational doctorate. I have an Ed.D. is what they call it. Do you have an Ed.D. or a Ph.D.?
I have a PhD.
Ah, he's better. That's what that means.
They're all
No.
it just depends.
What is the difference between a Ph.D. and an Ed.D.?
In the coursework that I went through, in terms of the educational doctorate and the PhD, was just a couple of additional classes in the area of research. So when we did our dissertations to finish the doctoral program, the PhD required more research, more statistics classes. Actually, it's really about it. But you know, and I like to do numbers and that kind of thing. So that was about it.
That's a great question. Now I'll tell you guys a funny joke. I don't know if it's a joke, it's just what my mom always says. Both my sister and I have doctorates, right? She has the PhD in accounting, which means heavy in research, science, math, statistics, and mine again in educational doctorate. But my mom will introduce us and say, both of my kids are doctors, but not the kind that can help people.
That's right.
You know, because we think of a doctor, we think of a medical doctor a lot of times, right? And they can write prescriptions, give you medicine to make you feel better and take care of you. Our doctorates mean that in our profession, education, we've gone as far as we can go in learning, as formal learning, right? So that's the highest degree you can get. But as I think both Joe and I will attest to, you never stop learning. And that's part of what brought us together, is continuing to learn. And we use social media and online resources to connect with people all across the world. When you go through a doctoral program, you're only limited really to those professors right now and your classmates. Whereas once you get into life and you continue learning, you can learn from anybody, anywhere, anytime. That's a great question.
Great question.
I will now take questions from the audience.
Mr. Sanfelippo, what was your thinking of the power of choice?
Did I say your name right?
Yes.
Great question. My thinking in the power of choice was in that blog post that I'm guessing you're referring to, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Power of choice really is, when we talk about how teachers grow and how we want teachers to grow, I think that they should have choice in how they grow. you know, sometimes you get into the situation where superintendents or people leading discussions will get up and then they'll just tell you what they think. And then those people that are out in the audience will just say, oh, that's really cool, you know, that's fantastic. And then they go back to the classroom and do the same stuff over and over again. So in the power of choice, what we try to do is we allow teachers to choose how they want to grow. And we talk about how everybody's path is different, but as long as you're growing and moving, that's the most important thing. So as long as we get on that path where you start at one point and you grow and you get to another point, then that's where you want to be, and I'm happy to have teachers do that and choose how they grow in that regard. Great question.
Jaciana.
Yeah.
Dr. Gentile, why did you leave your children with their grandparents when you went to Jamaica?
The great for everybody out there who blogs, whatever you put out there, people will read. So in that blog post, I talked about my family's, my wife and I taking a vacation to Jamaica, right? And it was first time we had been away, really since we got married, just the two of us. We have 2 children, an 8-year-old son who I talk a lot about, and my 4-year-old daughter. And quite honestly, Mommy and I needed a break. So that's why we had them stay with grandparents. And actually they stayed a couple nights with their grandparents, a couple nights with their aunt and uncle who they don't get to see as often as we'd like. So for them it was kind of a mini vacation as well. Now, as an educator, I believe in authentic experiences, so I'd like to get the kids to Jamaica sometime. But at 4 years old, we thought it was a little too soon to take her on a trip out of the country. So we'll do that hopefully sometime in the future where they get to experience other cultures. For me personally, going to Jamaica was just what I needed to recharge, re-energize. The power of the Jamaican culture is really their motto, which is, you know, I think it's one people. And you know what that means is they're all united, no matter how different they are. They're all united for one cause, and that's the betterment of each other. And I think that we can learn a lot from that. So that was where that was coming from. But good question. The kids had a hard time with us leaving, though. You probably can imagine if your parents were leaving. Some of you might be happy that they were leaving, but not at 4 years old. Trust me, you know, they were a little upset. Great question.
Joya.
Dr. Gentile and Mr. Sanfelippo, why did you make this blog and what inspired you to make it?
That was a great question. I think one of the things about blogging is that you get to kind of grow your circle of influence. So instead of me just sharing my thoughts with my staff or my family or just people in my superintendent area, the small group that we have, it's a really cool and powerful thing to be able to just write what you believe, and some people like to hear those things. And then you get to have these really rich conversations about what's going on either in your school or in your life or that kind of thing. So starting the blog was a really cool thing. Sometimes I feel the only kind of detriment to the blog, sometimes I feel the pressure to write. Like, oh man, I haven't posted in 3 weeks at this point, and we've had a lot going on. So I choose to go in a different direction. So, but it also it makes me think a little bit differently about how I do things, because I want to make sure that anything that we're doing, especially great things we're doing in Fall Creek, we're able to share those with as many people as possible.
Just to follow up, I echo what was said and agree 100% that it's a way to share your thoughts with everybody. People can choose to listen, they can choose to tune in, they can choose to follow you, or they can choose to tune out. And I think the lesson that I would hope to extend to all of you kids, with mom and dad's permission and under the guidance of your teachers, blog as much as possible. You can all be writers. I mean, that's a great way for you to express yourself in the written form. And as we talked about earlier off camera, don't be afraid of making mistakes. There are things that I wrote in that blog, posts that I've made, that when I look back on it, I probably have a different opinion now, or a different thought on it. For me, it's capturing that in-the-moment feeling about a particular topic or idea. And I think it's a great way for all of us to grow, because you can sort of capture your thoughts, put it out there, get feedback from people outside of your immediate circle, family, friends, and people you go to school with. It's a way for someone in Wisconsin to like something you said, or also offer a counterpoint that makes you think more critically about it. So for me, that's why I do it.
Mr. Sanfelippo, I understand that your school is called Cricket Country, and you say that your students play cricket. Do you play cricket?
Great question. We do live in cricket country. We've got everything that we do revolves around the Fall Creek Crickets. We're like the hub of the community where in our town, the school district is kind of where everybody goes. If there's a game on Friday night, people go there. If there's a concert, people go there. There's a play, people go there. Everybody's kind of coming to school, and we want to make sure that it's a really welcoming place for everybody to go. So we are definitely the Crickets. Now, we don't play cricket, but we have a number of sports that you guys would have here. Like, in fact, we probably have all the sports that you have here, minus a couple, except we don't have wrestling, we don't have hockey, and soccer. But other than that, we got basketball and football and track, golf, cross country.
No cricket.
No cricket. We don't play cricket though. But we'll have to explore that. We'll have to explore. Great question.
Savado.
Mr. Sanfelippo, why do you love the 80s so much? Why is it so important to you?
No.
That's a great question. Why do I love the 80s? The 80s were a great time. You taper your jeans. You're able to wear cool sweatshirts, triple popped collars. Man, you had it all in the 80s. Fantastic. And it was like, in the 80s, I was from like 6 to 16. That's, what a great time to live. Think about where you guys are at right now and all the cool things that you get to do. That was like the 80s for me. People are going to ask you someday what it was like to live in this time, or be a kid in this time.
I got a
So
question.
it's good.
What do you think, like for the 80s, there were lots of things. He referred to the collars and different styles back then. What is one thing that you guys do right now, and I'm looking out there and I see it, that you'll be remembered for, and this era will be remembered for?
Mr. Sanfelippo, in not just another day, why were the students the judge? Why not the teachers?
That is a great question. Why were the students the judges for what we did instead of the teachers? Well, I think sometimes, we have the teachers doing a lot of the judging, don't they? They judge kind of where you're at, or they assess what you're doing. Sometimes it's cool to have the teachers be to do the assessment and judge and that kind of thing. And that's why we did it that day. We wanted our kids to have part in what we did in that little contest, and they loved it. They love it, and I think if we can get more kids judging not only their work but other work, and you can kind of collaborate and connect and get better together, kids are going to be better too because they get a chance to own it. Great question.
It's a great idea.
Brandon Nash.
Gentile. As a kid, did you think about getting a doctorate?
So to answer the question, as a kid, did I think about getting a doctorate? The truth is no. As a kid, and actually as a Bacon Bear here in this exact classroom, I'm sure I was in this room at one point, all I knew from my parents' upbringing was that education was important, and that I needed to do well in school, I needed to do my best, and I needed to apply myself. As I got older, growing up, I think the idea of college and getting a higher degree was important and started to become more important. But as a kid, it was just the value of getting a good education, listening to my teachers, and trying to apply my best. So the doctorate came a little later.
Destiny.
Mr. Sanfelippo and Dr. Gentile, why did you choose the job of a superintendent? Why didn't you want to be something else?
Holy cow.
Guests first.
That's a great question. Why did I choose to be a superintendent? Well, I think I taught kindergarten for a little while. I taught second grade for a little while. I taught fifth grade for a little while. I was a counselor for a while. and then a principal for a while. So I did a lot of different things in schools. And one of the things about being a superintendent that's very, very cool is that you have a chance to impact a lot of people. And as a teacher, I loved having an impact and trying to work with kids in my class. And then as a principal, even a bigger group. And now I get a chance to work with an even bigger group as a superintendent, and I love it. It's a really great job. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in schools that that you have to deal with, but for the most part, to be able to be the voice of what goes on in our school. And when I got hired as a superintendent, I told the school board. Now the school board hires the superintendent, and they choose who that's going to be to lead the district. I told them, I might not be the best superintendent that you're going to find, but I will definitely be the loudest. So, if you want somebody to scream about the great things going on in your school district, then I'm the guy. So then, at that point, I just go out, we try to sell everything that we do because we have incredible kids doing amazing things. And other people in the world should hear about that. So if I can do that for our kids, then that's what being a superintendent to me really is about.
Tough answer to follow. Jeez, we got to be careful of our Wisconsin guests. They're too good. For me, again, I think much of the same in terms of how I came to be a superintendent. I never set out to be a superintendent. It wasn't a goal of mine. I set out to be an educator. I set out to help kids. That was my goal. That was my drive. I was able to do that in 4th grade. I taught 4th grade for a while. I taught middle school for a while. And I think what happens for a lot of us who come to these leadership positions, when you're in the classroom and you're doing a great job and people take notice that you're really engaged with the kids and the kids like you and you like the kids and you're getting results that are amazing, a lot like your own Mr. Hudson here. People start to recognize you as somebody that has a lot on the ball, and then people encourage you. Maybe, have you ever thought about going into administration? You could be a great leader and maybe have a bigger influence, like Dr. Sanfelippo said, a bigger influence and change the school, make the culture better and all those things. And for me, that's how it happened. I was encouraged to go into administration. I became a vice principal for a while, then a principal, and then before you know it, I was a superintendent, and then this huge leap to come here to be superintendent. My first superintendency was a small superintendency. I had 3 schools, and I thought that was hard work and crazy busy and very difficult. And then come home to my home district, 11 schools, over 6,000 students, over 1,200 employees. It's a huge job and a lot of responsibility, and I think as long as you stay grounded in why you went into education, which is you guys, the kids. I care more about you guys than you know, and the decisions I make, I try to make what I think is in the best interest of you. You don't see it directly, but it trickles down through the system. So I guess that's the long answer.
Zai.
Dr. Gentile, in your article, Innovate like Walt Disney, why do you say every job is simple?
Wow. That's a great question. Reminded of a blog post, and that's where your question comes from. Innovate like Walt Disney. That particular blog post came to me just at a moment. I was reading online, as I do a lot, and I said, I stumbled upon this thing, and who doesn't like Disney, right? I don't know anybody who, if they could be in Disney World right now, instead of sitting in a classroom, we would be in Disney, right? Is there anybody in here who disagrees? Of course not. Disney's awesome. It's world class. And you might think with Disney World and even the Disney store. How many of you have been to the Disney store at the malls? Right? You've seen the Disney store. You might look at it and just say, it's just a store, right? Or it's just Disney World. It's not. There's a lot of work that goes into making that experience happen. And I think they're a great example for all organizations and people to strive for, because they are the best at what they do. And Innovate like Walt Disney, he had that simple model that I was able to confirm with one of the students in here that you guys missed because we turned the recorder off for a second. But to innovate like Walt Disney, you need to have a dreamer, somebody who thinks the impossible, thinks as big as you can. Then you need a realist who helps you bring that back down to size by saying, I don't know, can we really do that? Let's look at the practical end of it. And then a critic, somebody who helps to refine it. And they keep going back and forth through the cycle. And the dreamer keeps dreaming, the realist keeps trying to make it doable, and the critic keeps looking for reasons why it can't happen. And in the end, hopefully the outcome you have is awesome. So that's where that came from. And I think I said innovation was simple. Was that the exact quote that you asked me about? You asked me why? Well, I think we overcomplicate innovation in the sense that we only look at what's been done in the past. And so to innovate, I think we need to think like Walt Disney and think about things that might seem impossible. And I think that's the only way to make things better. Great question. Kids are awesome.
Who has not had a turn yet?
Brandon Soto.
Dr. Gentile, what made you decide to train in MMA?
So MMA for me, mixed martial arts, has become a way of life lately in the last few years. One of the reasons I got into it, though, to be honest, was my son joined when he was 4 years old in a program. It was called Little Ninjas. And I used to go watch him all the time. And one day I was giving him some feedback afterwards, like, go a little harder, you could do this a little differently. And his sensei said, we have adult classes. And I think he was basically saying, it's easy to sit there and try to give feedback about something you don't really know how hard it is to do. So I joined up as a white belt in mixed martial arts with people a lot younger than me, a lot more in shape, and a lot stronger. And for me, that experience is really good because I know what it's like to be in the midst of trying to learn something that you don't understand or that's hard for you. So you got to push through it, right? And so now, a few belts later, I'm still not, the best, but I can compete. I'm a lot stronger than I ever was. And for me, I just enjoy it. It's a good way to release stress, right? Because sometimes we all get stressed. You know what it's like. You got mom or teachers or whoever saying, do your homework, you got to do your chores, clean your room. All that pressure builds up. So you need exercise, I think. So for me, that's where it comes from. And it's also a really good bond, I think, between my son and I. And I gotta keep working at it because I figure he's 8 now. By the time he's 18, he'll be a multiple degree black belt. And I can picture him saying, hey, Dad, can I have the car keys? And me saying no. And then, all of a sudden I'm in an arm bar and he's, taking them from me anyway. So I want to keep working at it so I can be competitive with him and that we can learn and share something together. So that's where MMA comes from for me. And as you know, if one of our students in here loves MMA, a lot of people think MMA, the only thing they think of is the fights in the UFC. And that's one aspect of mixed martial arts. But people who are trained in mixed martial arts don't go around looking for trouble. They don't go around doing the knockout game, as some of you have seen online and stuff. People who are trained in mixed martial arts learn to respect themselves first, and then respect others around them, right? We don't have anything to prove, do we? We're not walking around causing trouble, are we? That's right. So.
Alex, why did you say that you were horrible at punting?
Yeah, sometimes, like, when we're talking about, sometimes we use words that kind of try to mean different things. When it comes to, not good at punting, I'm not good at, like, letting stuff go. In football, when it's 4th down and whatever, and you got to punt because you don't think you're going to get the first down, I'm not good at that. I always want to keep moving forward. I'm not good at just saying, you know what, let's give up, let's try again later. So I try to do things as much as possible when I think about how to kind of move things forward and never give up. I'm just not good at giving up at all. So I get pretty competitive, but at the same time I want to make sure that we're not giving up. And I try to teach our kids the same thing. Never give up on stuff, especially if things aren't going well, if you're not going well. You know what? That's just the way it works. Try something different and go forward. Great question.
Pun. Yeah, that's great. I think I just want to follow up on that. It's great that you ask the question and you get clarification, because growing up sometimes we talk and we don't realize that you may not understand the full meaning. So yeah, punting is not just football punting. Punting is saying, all right, we need to punt here because this isn't working. We need to give up. And so I think that's a great figurative language piece there. That's good. Really cool.
Horizon.
Dr. Jen. Oh.
Mr. Sanfelippo, what is the best article you wrote? I think that alphabet soup was interesting because it talked about how you divided them by experience of education.
That was a great question. What was my favorite post or favorite article that I wrote? There's two that really kind of stand out. One was my reflections of a first-year superintendent. And that was really fun for me to write because a couple things happened that year, and I'll tell you about one of them in a second, that were really cool. The one that I liked two of them this year, two that I wrote this year. One was How Big Is Your Brave, and one is Finding Super. Those were my two favorite this year. How Big Is Your Brave was really about telling teachers, you know what, go out and do something different. Don't live in your little circle, you know, where you're at. Jump outside of your comfort zone and go do something really crazy.
So try new things?
Yeah, try new things, right? And Finding Super was probably my favorite kid article or kid blog post this year because every kid has something inside of them that's super. And it's our job as teachers or as administrators or whatever, as adults, to find super in every kid. And so you all have something inside of you that just is going to change the world. And it's our job to make sure that you know that you're incredible at what you do and go from there. And those were probably my two favorite this year. But that's a great question. Great question. The Alphabet Soup blog post was really about how there's so many things in education that have acronyms, like you have different types of tests, or you have like in Wisconsin, there's the Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness Project, WIEE, there's RTI, PBIS, CCSS, so there's all these acronyms, right? But it shouldn't be about the acronyms, it should be about what goes on with kids, and one of the things that we did at the beginning of the year, my two principals and I did this skit for our whole staff, and we talked about how all these things are going on in education and all of these acronyms. And we did a skit where one of our principals fell down because he was just so delirious with all of these things buzzing around him. And then we had a little first grader come out on stage and poke him on the shoulder and just say, "Just focus on me. That's all you got to focus on. Just focus on me." And it was a pretty cool deal. And that's online too. That's in the school opening video. It's on my blog.
I got nothing. I can't follow that up. That's awesome. It connects with me. I think that's just a really good way to surmise what being a superintendent's about. It's taking all these acronyms and all these people at the department level, federal level, state level, telling us what we need to do for kids, but reminding us that you can't sum up the value of any child with an acronym. There's no acronym for it. So you guys are all awesome. And I think what Dr. Sanfelippo said, it's our job to find the super in all of you. It's your job as well to find the super within you. Don't give up on the things that are important to you. Like if you have a dream and you love something, don't give up on it because maybe somebody told you weren't very good at it. Somebody might tell you, that you can't be a good writer because you're struggling. Personally, writing never came easy to me. I have dyslexia, so when I was growing up, I had a hard time reading books. I had a hard time writing. I was smart enough that if I listened, I could give you back what you just said to me, and I got through school pretty good that way. And then later found out that I had this dyslexia, which is a reading disorder, worked at it, trained my brain again, and I love to read and I love to write, and I think I'm pretty good at it. Whether or not, I'll have to check the stats and see how many people are actually looking at my blog to see if I'm very good at it, but I encourage you not to let anybody hold you back or hold you down or define you by any one measure. Right.
Jason.
Mr. Sanfelippo, why did you nickname your your state Badger State?
Well, great question about our state, the Badger State. You know, I didn't get a chance to nickname the Badger State. If I would have got a chance to nickname it, it would be the Cricket State, obviously, because, you know, we're Fall Creek Crickets, we want to be out there. But the Badger State is, you know, we do have badgers in the state. Have anybody know or seen a badger before? They're fierce, right? I saw a badger once, it's just fierce. But it is the Badger State, and I didn't have anything to do with naming it, so I wish, you know, it would be a Cricket State if it was me, right?
Do you have any questions for us?
I do. Do you mind if we ask? Can we ask some? Can I ask to Chase first? Because he's done a great job of moderating this whole thing, so I thought I'd ask him. Chase, well, you were phenomenal today. And I appreciate the fact that you had to call on all your friends and everything that you put together. You just did a great job. I was really impressed. Can you tell me what's the best part about being here at this school at Bacon?
The best part is, the best part of this school is when somebody falls down, somebody else picks them up and makes them feel better.
Wow.
Chase, that's a great detail.
That is fantastic.
Unrehearsed.
Yeah, that's good
awesome.
stuff. What a great feeling, right? Because if things aren't going well, you know you got people to kind of get your back. That's great. What a great feeling. Who wouldn't want to learn in a place like that? That's amazing. Good for you, and good for all of you because you make them feel that way. That's pretty incredible.
All right, I'll throw out a question. This goes out to anybody who wants to answer it. If you could change one thing about school, what would it be and why? All right.
I don't like suspension because I get to be away from the school.
Okay, that's a great, not having to ever suspend kids, right? Because we agree that you being at home, any child, not just Brazon, Brazon's the brave one that talked about this, but any student being suspended and being sent home, you're missing out on an opportunity to learn. Why do kids sometimes get suspended? Let's think about that. And I know you guys have great answers. They don't listen to rules. They might hurt somebody else, right? Call out a couple other reasons.
Bullying.
Bullying. What else?
Because they can like make somebody feel like they don't belong in the school.
Making somebody else feel badly, right? So there's all kinds of reasons. We try to save suspension for those serious ones. So the alternative is letting people get away with that, right? So sometimes you have to have a consequence for your actions. I believe, and I think Bacon Bears, I know here, we try to not do that. There's a lot of things in between, opportunities for you to change your behavior, learn from your mistakes, and hopefully not make those same mistakes again, right? I don't ever want to hear any of you guys getting suspended. But sometimes that happens. You make a bad decision. It's the same thing for the grown-ups in the room. If we're driving down the road, right, we get pulled over because we were going too fast, we cannot like speeding tickets, but darn it, we deserved it, right? So think about that. You know, what I would hate for is for someone to get suspended and they didn't deserve it or didn't have an opportunity ahead of time to correct their behavior. So that's a great input. Is there a question? Anything else you would change about school? I know Brazon said that one. Let's go with one more. Chase?
The one thing that I would change about school is when you get lunch detention, you're missing out of your friends, speaking to your friends, and sitting on the bench, eating your food by yourself.
Again, I think this one goes right back to our sort of what we talked about with our suspensions. Chase, how do you get lunch detention? Is it, you know, you're just handed it, or is it for making maybe a poor choice, accidentally doing something you shouldn't have done, right? Again, it goes back to that philosophy. I think consequences are part of life, and hopefully what makes us better is that you get a lunch detention, you realize you can't talk with your friends, which you enjoy, and then you decide, I'm not going to make that same bad mistake again, right? Can I go right here? Because I wanted to see what you had to say. What was something you would change about school? Did you have you had a thought there for a minute? You had your hand up. I really wanted to get you involved, but it's okay. All right, one more. Right there.
What I would want to change about school is if somebody bullies somebody, and instead of letting them get away with it because they don't know who the person is, try to find that kid and fix it.
Restated, the question in your answer. I know you were doing that for the camera, but you restated your point really well. And I think you also brought up a really interesting thing, and maybe we can ask if Wisconsin has the same bullying stuff that we have, because it's hard sometimes to catch a bully, right? Because bullying can be subtle. We know that. It can be as simple as leaving somebody out. It can be as simple as saying, wow, I really like what you're wearing, but not meaning it, right? So it's hard sometimes to pinpoint kids that aren't doing things nice, right? So I agree with you. We should try to continue to make things harder on bullies and help people learn to be nice to each other, okay? Wisconsin, do you have bullying incidents?
Now, we do. One of the things that you make a really good point, because if somebody's getting bullied and they're on their own, it's a really hard thing. So one of the things that we try to teach people is that proximity and togetherness always helps. In that if you see somebody that's getting made fun of or left out, just standing by them, even if you don't want to engage in talking to the person that's being a bully, just standing by them helps. So having someone next to you makes you feel a lot more comfortable than if you're kind of standing out on your own. And that's what we try to do. But it happens at our school too. So we try to just make sure that it's not, that we get out in front of it the best we can. And I tell our kids that, you can't let bullies run your playground. We have to stand up to those people, because we can't be in every situation. We can't have an adult everywhere. So you have to be able to patrol your playground.
Thank you guys for coming to our Bacon School. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate being here. We want to thank you, Chase, for being our moderator. It was awesome. So everybody give Chase a round of applause. And we want to thank our guest from Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
His arms are tired. He flew all the way
That's
here.
right.
Yeah?
I got him this morning.
So
So yeah, I just want to say thank you too, because just to think that we'd be able to come and kind of connect with as superintendents in schools is really kind of an odd feeling. Something I never would have thought would have happened a long time, 6 months ago. So to be able to come here and talk to you about things going on in your school and the amazing atmosphere this year, you have a great culture for learning in this classroom. It feels like you can just learn and learn and learn here. And I hope our kids at Fall Creek feel the same way about their classroom as you feel about yours, because they do incredible things there too. So Chase, my man, you're amazing. Thank you so much for having us, and we appreciate it. Dr. Cook, thank you so much as well.
Dr. Cook, let's make sure we can get a shot of all the kids waving to all the Fall Creek cricketers out there. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but we'll make sure we video you guys so that they can extend and see the kids.
Great.